Hi friends, in this video I am going to guide you through the best ways to improve how you use the Peacekeeper. I'll talk you through the key stats and outputs you can expect from the Peacekeeper, along with some useful tips on how to get the best out of the Peacekeeper. Let's start by looking at the stats and spread patterns of the Peacekeeper. This will help you understand the damage potential of the Peacekeeper and also how to hit more shots with the Peacekeeper. So the Peacekeeper itself does 9 damage per pellet and it has 11 pellets per shot in the star pattern. This gives you 99 body shot damage per shot, and shotguns also have a 1.25 headshot multiplier, which gives you a headshot damage per shot of 121 with the Peacekeeper. Now I hear you saying, why is it not 124 damage if I say the headshot multiplier is 1.25? So here's the answer to why it's not 124 headshot damage. And it's a fun fact because shotguns actually calculate the damage per pellet rather than the total shot. So you do in fact multiply 9 by 1.25 to get 11.25. You then multiply this by 11 because of course there are 11 pellets in a round as I mentioned, and this gives you the 121 damage per headshot that you see in game. Now if we look at this damage, it basically means you can down an enemy with any shield in 2 to 3 shots. But that is if you can connect with all of the pellets, of course, which can actually be hard to do. So I will give you some tips later in this video to help you connect with more pellets when you're using the Peacekeeper. Now the Peacekeeper actually has one of the slowest fire rates out of all of the shotguns. In fact, it actually has one of the slowest fire rates in the game apart from snipers. The fire rate is 44 rounds per minute, and if you compare this to the EVA 8, which has 126 RPM, you can see the difference there. The EVA 8 is almost 3 times as fast as the fire rate of the Peacekeeper. Of course, you are able to pick up a bolt for the Peacekeeper, which does increase the fire rate. Actually, what it does is reduce the rechamber time, which is the action you see between shots, but that is effectively the fire rate. So the level 1 shotgun bolt reduces the rechamber time by 7.5%, the level 2 by 13%, and the level 3 by 16%. So essentially, you can make the Peacekeeper 16% faster with a level 3 bolt, which for a weapon as powerful as the Peacekeeper is actually really beneficial. The recoil pattern is quite interesting. It's a star shape, but it does have quite a wide spread if you're not ADSing from distance. Even while ADSing, the spread is quite wide from distance without a choke. If you didn't realise, the precision choke is built into the Peacekeeper the same kind of way as it is with the triple take, and the choke will vastly reduce your spread. Interestingly, the Peacekeeper is the only shotgun that doesn't lose headshot multiplier after a certain distance. So in effect, you can use the Peacekeeper from range, and if you hit headshots, you will still get the multiplier, and this is where the choke becomes beneficial. This does lead us onto some tips on how to use the Peacekeeper though, and we can start with whether to ADS or hipfire. The principle's quite simple. If you hipfire, the spread is much wider than ADSing. However, the spread only really matters up to a certain distance. Here's my rule of thumb. If you're within punching distance of an enemy, then you don't actually need to ADS. Yes, the choke will still condense your shots into a tighter cluster, but you can see if you're close enough to the enemy, it doesn't really matter if you ADS or not. The spread is tight enough when you're not ADSing to still hit a full headshot without missing any pellets, because you can see the size of the head does fit the cluster even when you're not ADSing from punching distance. One thing I like to do personally is quickscope with the Peacekeeper. The trick to do this is basically press your ADS button, so for me on the controller it's the left trigger. As soon as you do that, quickly press the right trigger or your fire button as you're ADSing, and this will then give you the quick ADS fire effect that reduces some of the hipfire sway that you can have if your movement sensitivity is a little high. And this is often how you get the flicking effect that you see some of the pros use when they're using the Peacekeeper. Of course, the greater the distance, the more you should ADS, and if you're 2 to 3 arm lengths away from your opponent, then it's actually a better idea to ADS and use the choke instead of hipfiring. And this leads nicely into where should you aim. This is basically body shots versus headshots. The headshot damage for the Peacekeeper is actually the second highest out of any floor loot weapon in the game, behind the Sentinel, which has 140 headshot damage. Obviously that's when it's not charged. The Peacekeeper does have the highest body shot damage out of any floor loot weapon, with the charge rifle in second place with 90. So based on this, you want to be hitting as many pellets as possible, and the head is obviously a smaller target. And this ties in with what I was saying about the spread. If you're within punching distance of the enemy, then it's okay to hip fire, and you can actually aim for the head while hip firing and get a decent shot. You can even use my quickscope ADS technique, and this will help you hit those headshots a little more up close. However, anything further from punching distance, you really want to be aiming for the body. Now the upper chest is typically the largest target, so it's going to give you your best chance of hitting more pellets. Therefore, you want to be aiming for the upper chest when you're anything more than punching distance from the enemy. Now, in addition to these tips about aiming, you can also think about combos, and I would say it's often a good idea to keep the Peacekeeper paired with a mid to long range weapon. Something like an R301, or maybe even a G7 Scout or a Repeater as a primary weapon with the Peacekeeper as a secondary weapon. And what this means is you can deal fast and quick damage with your primary weapon, but also have a good amount of range. But then for those up close battles, for example if you deal damage from a further distance and then you want to push in, you can finish off the enemies that you've dealt damage to with the Peacekeeper. And the Peacekeeper is very strong if you can hit it in one hit, so it's the perfect weapon to finish off an enemy. One final tip I'll give is to use as much cover as possible with the Peacekeeper. It's the case for most slow firing weapons that you want to use cover to protect you in between shots, but as I mentioned earlier on in this video, the Peacekeeper has one of the slowest fire rates in the game, so you really do want to try and use the cover to give you protection in between the slow rechamber time of the Peacekeeper. The best way to do this is find some cover, and as you shoot, in between shots, quickly duck behind cover, whether that be crouching or moving left or right behind a wall. You want to do this as often as possible in between shots, and put simply, this will give you the protection you need against automatic weapons to allow you to win 1v1s with the Peacekeeper. And that's it for my video on how to use the Peacekeeper. I hope this information and these tips will help you improve with the Peacekeeper. Of course it will take practice, and sometimes it can feel hard when you're only hitting 9 or 18 damage per shot, but like I said, if you practice and use the tips in this video, the Peacekeeper can really help you win more games in Apex Legends. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you later.